You want to see my favorite grave? Now, a little bit of backstory. This headstone is located in Walpack Cemetery, which was the burying point of Walpack Village, which was once a thriving community settled in the 1700s that saw a steady decline as its various industries became obsolete and ultimately became a ghost town when the area was claimed as eminent domain in the 1970s and all the remaining residents were forced out for a reservoir that was going to be built to help with flooding on the Delaware River. Ultimately, the reservoir was never built, so now the town just sits abandoned. Today, the village center is maintained as a historical landmark, while traveling the fire lanes into the forest will lead you to even more abandoned homes that have stood empty for decades, slowly being swallowed by the forest. But the cemetery remains intact, and in it, you can find a very special headstone. This gorgeous, ornate headstone is actually not stone at all. It's made from zinc. Starting in the 1870s, hollow grave markers made out of this durable and cheaply produced metal became kind of fashionable. They were marketed as white bronze, and today cemetery aficionados tend to call these gravestone white whales zinkies. They were available in a number of styles, with cutouts where custom panels could be ordered and installed. The zinkie in the Walpack Cemetery has 4 panels, one bearing the name of the interred, Mr. Henry Burke, who died in May of 1876 at 80 years old. Another panel bears a beautiful funeral wreath featuring roses and, interestingly, what appears to be tropical flowers, including hibiscus. The back panel is fitted with the super metal epitaph, "Thy word commands our flesh to dust. Return, ye sons of men. All nations rose from earth at first, and turn to earth again." And the 4th panel is missing, leaving a mysterious void that allows you to peer into the dark of the hollow monument, and hopefully find nothing but spiders lurking inside. I also have a weird little personal story that took place in this graveyard. So this took place in my early 20s when I used to deal with my angst by driving out to abandoned places by myself, hoping I would find something scarier than the way that I was allowing men to treat me at the time. Anyway, on one such angsty night, I drove out to this ghost town, and it started raining on the way, but once I hit Walpack, it started to torrentially downpour. It was like thunderstorm conditions. The rain was actually so thick that I could barely see the road, so I pulled over near the cemetery and I parked my car, and I was just, sitting in the car, listening to music, watching the rain on the windows, whatever. Hanging out in my own personal bubble. And when the downpour finally eased back to a drizzle, I decided that I was gonna go out and take a walk in the cemetery. So I turned off my car, I got out, and I headed into the graveyard. Now at this point, it's probably 3 o'clock in the morning, okay? Still pitch black out, but it just stormed and there should be nobody out there. So I'm not too creeped out by walking into this graveyard by myself. And so, of course, I'm taking a little stroll through. I stop at my favorite graves, the zinkie, the babies, all the greatest hits. The ground was wet and my boots were getting stuck in the moss and the mud. There was rainwater dripping off the dead tree that overhangs most of the cemetery. So if I heard any sounds, I just kind of assumed it was the sound of the rain dripping through the branches and hitting the leaves or whatever. But then, as I rounded those hanging branches, I saw a flickering light in the dark. And as I looked across the graveyard, I realized that there was a lit candle on one of the graves nearby. And I stared at that freshly lit flame burning in the misty night. And I knew that someone had to be in that cemetery with me, because there was no way that that candle stayed lit through the storm. And I had just gotten out of my car once the rain eased up. And to make it even weirder, I didn't see any headlights pull up as I was sitting there, and there were no other cars parked on the road. So whoever was out there had come there on foot. Which reminds me, one time I actually found a pair of footprints burned into the asphalt on the road outside that cemetery. But that's another story.